Just hit a button, Morty, give me a beat!
Oh man, okay, alright,
Manchester United 1, West Ham 1, how David Moyes shut down Solskjaer's attack. So going into the game, Solskjaer started with a 4-2-3-1 with De Gea in goal, Fosu-Mensah at right back, Brandon Williams at left back, Maguire and Lindelof at centre back, with Pogba and Matic in the midfield double pivot, Bruno Fernandes in front of them, Marcus Rashford on the left flank, Greenwood on the right and Martial up front. David Moyes lined up West Ham in a 4-5-1 shape with Fabianski in goal, Ben Johnson at right back, Cresswell at left back, Ogbonna and Diop at centre back, with Souček and Rice playing as a midfield double pivot, Mark Noble in front of them, Jarrod Bowen started on the right, Fornals was on the left of midfield and Antonio started up front. So before I get into the analysis, remember to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. And after this video, check out some of my other videos, including the video I uploaded recently analysing Manchester United and Liverpool's target Thiago Alcantara, which will be linked in the description below. So from the start of the game, West Ham were looking to press United in a 4-4-2 shape, with Noble and Antonio the frontline pressers, looking to cut off the passing lanes into Matic and Pogba, and force United out to the fullbacks. This was a tactic that Chelsea had success with as they nullified United by playing a narrow front five, forcing the ball out to Williams and Wan-Bissaka, and you can see my full analysis of that game, which will be linked in the description below. West Ham were obviously trying to stop those half spaces from opening up for Fernandes, Greenwood and Rashford to move into. Souček and Rice were positioned very narrow together in order to do this, whilst Noble would drop back from the front two pressing line into the midfield when United had the ball in West Ham's half. Ben Johnson and Aaron Cresswell were taking up narrow positions in the back four because Jarrod Bowen and Fornals had the responsibility of tracking United fullbacks down the flanks, so this was essentially a 4-5-1 deep defensive block that West Ham were deploying, not allowing space in behind their back line or behind their midfield and focusing on forcing United out wide. United continued to use their usual 4-2-3-1 shape. Matic would drop deep, wide of West Ham's front two to pick up the ball, but United's passing in their build-up and in their middle third was slow and lethargic, making it easy for West Ham to move across and cover the space that could potentially emerge between the lines. We can see here that Brandon Williams should have made a movement forward, dragging Bowen backwards and creating space for Matic. Instead he remained still, staying in the same horizontal positional line as Matic, making it easy for West Ham to cut out his passing lanes. But West Ham didn't just sit in a deep, compact shape, they also pushed Souček up onto Pogba during United's build-up in their defensive third when De Gea had the ball at his feet, with Noble and Antonio pushing up onto the centre-backs. This was actually a relatively intelligent piece of tactical play from Moyes, as many times we see sides against more dominant teams reluctant to press high, preferring to sit deep and avoid space opening up in the centre of the park. However, what ends up happening is that the side ends up constantly losing possession and getting penned back into their own half with constant attacks, as the dominant side can easily move the ball into the opposition half and it becomes a game of attack versus defence. When West Ham had the ball, I thought United should have been more aggressive with their press. They sat off and allowed West Ham's backline to have possession when they made it into the middle third. Here we see Fernandes and Martial, the first pressing line of United's 4-4-2 shape, sitting off and allowing West Ham's backline to have the ball. Instead of having them sit in front of Rice and Souček, I think Solskjaer should have used a more trigger pressing system. So instead of constantly pressing, when the ball was shifted out to one of the fullbacks, this could have acted as a trigger for one of the wide midfielders to push up to pressurise the player on the ball. Fernandes or Martial could then cut off the passing lane back to the centre back, whilst the whole midfield could have squeezed over to that side to cut off any passing options. To be fair to United, we did see them do this in parts of the game. Here we see Ben Johnson receives the ball, Rashford immediately implies a pressure whilst Fernandes is tight on Rice and Matic is also moving over to that side to squeeze the play. However, this only really happened in West Ham's defensive third and would have been more beneficial to see in the middle third, as it's not like West Ham had much pace in their forward line, with Bowen, Antonio and Fornals all preferring to receive the ball to feet, which would have allowed United to play a higher defensive line. The reason I think Solskjaer shied away from this was because of the concern of potentially Maguire becoming isolated in one-on-ones down the left channel if Williams pushed too far up the pitch. United were constantly looking for that pass into either Bruno Fernandes or Martial to break the lines of the West Ham system. Matic here has the ball and is looking for a passing lane to open up into Martial, who is dropping deep from the forward line to offer an option going forward, but what United should have been doing simultaneously is working the ball down the flanks. This is because by constantly shifting the ball from side to side, this would have forced West Ham's system to keep moving from side to side as well. Eventually, as the system was being stretched, a passing lane would have opened up between the central players, and this would have been how United worked the ball in behind the midfield. Instead, United didn't use the flanks enough, as once again the fullbacks lacked the offensive ability needed, with both Fosu-Mensah and Brandon Williams not decisive enough when in possession, which is why West Ham were happy to keep narrow and allow the ball to flow out to United's fullbacks. Pogba and Matic also weren't quick enough to move the ball on, whilst the central midfielders do need to be constantly looking to play those incisive passes forwards. Sometimes you need to recognise that it's more beneficial to be patient, move the ball on and wait for a specific pass to come along rather than looking every time, dwelling on the ball whenever you receive it. Whilst West Ham began to sit deeper in their own half, there were a few opportunities for United to open up their system. When Rashford received the ball on the left flank, Bruno Fernandes recognised the space opening up between the two centre-backs and made a run ahead of the forward line into a great position and was found by Rashford, but unfortunately his ball control let him down. Ben Johnson looked very comfortable on that right side, not looking rash when faced in a one-on-one against either Rashford or Martial, which was a massive factor as to why West Ham were able to stop United advancing the ball into the box. Michail Antonio's movement was also interesting. Whilst he positioned himself as a centre forward when out of possession, when West Ham were able to establish possession, he would often move out wide to that left flank. This was because Fornals isn't a natural wide player and would move inside into central positions. Moyes was also using Souček like he had with Fellaini at Everton before. Here, when Rice and Noble have possession in United's half, we can see Souček has moved up into a centre-forward position. Antonio has pulled out to this left side, with Ben Johnson keeping the width on the right flank, allowing Jarrod Bowen to also move inside into a central position. When the ball was shifted out to the right flank, Souček became an aerial threat in the centre of the box, whilst Antonio was also a threat coming round the back post. I thought West Ham should have looked to use both of these players a lot more by putting in deep crosses, as Lindelof is poor in the air and both Fosu-Mensah and Aaron Wan-Bissaka would have struggled to compete with Antonio if a deep cross came into the box. West Ham did take the lead after Pogba made a better save than Kepa has all season. Only problem is he isn't a goalkeeper and it wasn't his own box, so gave away a penalty. Antonio scored the resulting penalty as Pogba recovered from his imaginary injury, though it wasn't all bad for Pogba as fortunately Roy Keane wasn't a pundit during the game, so Pogba avoided a raft of verbal abuse at half time. Going into the second half, Wan-Bissaka came on for Fosu-Mensah, which didn't look like it would solve United's attacking problems down the flanks. West Ham continued with their narrow shape, and we can see here just how narrow the right midfielder Jarrod Bowen is, as West Ham congested the centre of the pitch, forcing the ball out wide to the fullbacks. United did get an equaliser courtesy of Mason Greenwood, and once again this goal exemplified the advantage of using a narrow but fluid front three. Here, as Pogba is about to receive the ball, we can see Greenwood taking up a position in the half space. He has a ball control to receive the ball, turn and then play a couple of passes with Martial as he moves into a central position, and when the pass is played into him, he has a unique ability to get the ball out of his feet quickly before drilling the ball low and hard into the bottom corner past the keeper in Robin van Persie-like fashion. From then on, it looked like United would assert their dominance on the game, but instead they continued to struggle to work the ball into the half spaces. Bruno Fernandes, Rashford and Pogba all had poor games, with their passing not as sharp or as accurate as usual, and when West Ham dropped back into their 4-5-1 shape, with even Antonio dropping behind the ball, United could only funnel their attacks down the flanks. There should have been better attacking patterns from United on the flanks with quicker passing. If Greenwood pulls out wide, United should be looking to get someone making an underlapping run into the space between the centre-back and full-back, and then use quick interplay to play around West Ham's system, but this didn't materialise. West Ham also could have looked more threatening. Bowen's movement in field made him an excellent passing option, but Moyes should have used Johnson more offensively, pushing him forward on the overlap, which would have allowed West Ham to get into more creative positions, and Johnson's crossing looked reasonably good, so he could have moved up the pitch a lot more, and West Ham could have had more aerial success with both Antonio and Souček being targets in the box. United were unable to break down West Ham as both sides seemed to stroll through the last 20 minutes of the game, with United now needing to not lose on the final day against Leicester to be guaranteed of a Champions League spot. One interesting part of an otherwise relatively dull game was Michail Antonio's tactical role in the West Ham system. He is seemingly playing as a main centre forward but seems to roam over to the left flank when his side have possession in the final third. I describe Michail Antonio as a Ramdeuter, which is a term Thomas Müller used to describe his role, which translates to a space investigator in German. The role of a Ramdeuter is to float around the forward line and move into the space when the chances approach. Rather than being regimented with sticking in the central position, a Ramdeuter is allowed to roam deep or out wide when he sees fit. This is the role that Cristiano Ronaldo plays at Juventus and did at Madrid for a few seasons before he's moved to Turin. The benefit of this role for both Ronaldo and Antonio is it allows them to move away from the centre backs, making it hard for one specific defender to mark them, as if they do, they'll be drawn out of position. But moving wide, Antonio and Ronaldo are able to isolate the weakest link in the back line, which they do both aerially and through their quick movements in the box, making them goal scoring threats despite playing from the flank. If you want me to do a further in-depth analysis of the randoi, to leave a comment in the description below, and make sure you give this video a like. So thank you for watching that video. If you enjoyed it, as I said, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and check out some of my other videos linked in the description below.